What's good? Y'all welcome to Jonah 1:15 through 17. God will preserve a prophet. Now, the word preserve means to keep in good condition, okay? God will keep a prophet in good condition. God will protect a prophet. God will cover a prophet. God will discipline a prophet as well. These are the last two chapters or the last two verses in Jonah 1. And throughout Jonah 1, we see the Lord called Jonah to go to Nineveh to prophesy. But then we also see God silently rebuke Jonah for disobeying him and for paying a fee to go to Tarshish and for sleeping in the bottom of a ship. It was just total rebellion. Now, a prophet is created by God to be a servant of the Lord, to be a messenger for God, to be available for his use. And a prophet has to be committed to doing the will of the Lord. A prophet is a messenger for God. They are called to speak a new message from God to his people. His people will not know which way to go, what's coming up ahead, how to be in the Lord's will unless a prophet is sent or the Lord speaks himself. And oftentimes he raises up a prophet because the prophet is also an intercessor and is the voice of God. The prophet is the voice of God for his people. Now the prophet will be persecuted. The prophet will have to come to a place of understanding where you realize my life is not my own. I'm a prophet, meaning that I am the Lord's servant. I do the Lord's will. I go where he sends me. I don't really live a regular life. I don't live a regular life. I don't get the perks of doing everything everybody else gets to do. I am set aside for his use, for his purpose, and for his glory. That's a prophet. A real prophet knows my life decisions matter because they can hinder the Lord's people from getting the word they need from me as God's prophet, but also from God actually moving and working and doing new things in their life. And so if you're a prophet, take your walk with God, take your journey with the Lord very seriously, because you have no idea of who needs you to speak that new message from God to his people. All right, y'all, let's look at Jonah 1:15 through 17. It says, so they took up Jonah and cast him forth into the sea, and the sea ceased from raging. And the sea ceased from her raging. Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly and offered a sacrifice unto the Lord and made vows. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. So verse 15, so they do take up Jonah and cast him forth into the sea, and the sea ceased from her raging. They threw Jonah the prophet into a raging sea because that was the only way to stop the ship from breaking and to save their lives. That's how angry, how furious, how harsh the wrath of God was. God was after Jonah. Jonah was going to suffer until he obeyed the Lord. And so the men, they took up Jonah in verse 15 and cast him forth into the sea, and the sea ceased from her raging. The sea stopped raging, so the men who were left on the boat, they could keep going, okay? But Jonah went down into the sea. Verse 16, then the men feared the Lord exceedingly and offered a sacrifice unto the Lord and made vows. So now these men go into a state where they are actually believing in the God that Jonah serves, because the God Jonah serves stopped the sea from raging once the prophet went into the sea, as they were told by the prophet himself. Verse 17, now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. As a prophet, don't be surprised when God prepares a place of preservation. Like, you going to see, he could have just went did his work in Nineveh, but Jonah wanted to go the other way, and Jonah wanted to spend money, and Jonah wanted to run from God. And so God said, go ahead, Jonah, I'm going to chase you down. And he made the sea rage, and he said, I got to go into the sea. He was sleeping on the boat. I got to go into the sea. So Jonah gets thrown in the sea, and God's like, good, Jonah, now I got you to myself. I prepared a fish to swallow you up, and I'm going to put you in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. I'm going to spare your life, Jonah, but you're going to be scared, and you're going to realize you need to come back to me. Don't be surprised as a prophet when your only next step is to do the will of God. All right. I love y'all. I'll see you later.